Hello, everyone. I'm very, very pleased to welcome you to our talkback for the amazing film, A Thousand Cuts. My name is Claire Aguilar, and I am a programmer and editorial consultant for documentaries. And I will be your moderator for this evening in the presence of amazing women from the film, A Thousand Cuts. Um, Thanks for tuning in, and I'd like to start off with introducing our participants tonight or today, as it may be. I'm speaking to you, by the way, from California and Los Angeles, which is the sacred land of the Shoshone and Chumash people here in Los Angeles. First, I'd like to welcome the director, producer of the film A Thousand Cuts, Ramona Díaz. Ramona is a filmmaker that I've known for a long time. She has made films that highlight the Filipino experience and the Asian American experience. And you may have known her from her seminal film, Imelda, which premiered in 2004. And A Thousand Cuts is her latest film. Then we're joined by the producer and editor of the film, Leah Marino. Welcome, Leah. Leah comes from Austin. Leah has edited many films, a lot of Ramona Diaz's films, but also has produced the film, and she is going to be able to share this experience of producing and editing and constructing the film. And then lastly, we have the journalist and CEO of Rappler, Maria Ressa. The renowned journalist, and A Thousand Cuts is in a way a portrait of Maria's struggle for freedom of the press, and also for her own dedication to truth in journalism in the Philippines. So welcome, Maria. And Maria is coming from Manila, right? So it's morning for you there.
Good morning.
Thanks, Claire. Thank you for doing this.
Oh,
It's
it's
a pleasure to be here.
a pleasure. Really happy to present this Q&A, which is being presented to you by PBS Distribution, and also by the Center for Asian American Media, CAM. So thanks very much for co-presenting this. Let's start off at the beginning. This film, by the way, if you want to see this film, it's now streaming. It premiered on the PBS series Frontline on January 8th. So it's available on Frontline. So you can just go to pbs.org and you can find the film there, and you can stream it for free if you haven't seen it already. But it premiered at Sundance, which is a year ago. It heralded a long time in the making. Let me ask you, Ramona, and Leah too, if you want to chime in. Like, how did this film start? What was your intention for the film at the beginning?
Hey, Claire. So thank you, PBSD, and thank you, Cam. Cam is so, has been such an important part of my career. I would not have a career without Cam, so thank you for co-presenting this. But yeah, to get back to your question, really, I was drawn back to the Philippines because of Duterte being president, right? His rise. In 2016, he became president, and he started the drug war. And I started seeing pictures of the drug war, really basically dead bodies in the streets, and really this dramatic, horrific photographs. And that's what drew me back. And so I thought I wanted to make a film about the drug war. But when I got to the Philippines, I realized a lot of people were already making that film. A lot of films have since come out about the drug war. So I sort of, I pivoted because I looked around. I wanted to see what else was there. I knew I wanted to make a film about Duterte, the Philippines under Duterte. Because all my films usually, I usually deal with theme of power, right? Power and disempowerment in all my films. And this was one of those cases again. I wanted to see impunity. I wanted to see what it was like. It seemed very regressive because I grew up under martial law. I knew what dictatorship was like. As suddenly we were going back in time, it felt weird. So once I started looking around, there was Maria and Rappler. Maria was questioning the drug war, questioning the numbers, and also relating it to disinformation. And that was a new thing for me. It was like, oh, aha, I didn't think of that, when I was, she was making that connection between impunity and disinformation. She was talking about algorithms in 2016 when no one was talking about algorithms in Facebook. So it was like, oh my gosh, yes. And it was so clear she was mapping out, mapping out networks. So for me, it was like this light bulb. I'm like, yes, it's still very specifically a Filipino story, but it transcends it now because it makes it more resonant globally because of disinformation. It's happening everywhere. So that's what So I sort of turned toward that story, but also with that full intention of still making this sort of like an ensemble film. What I like to call my Robert Altman-esque film. And Leah and I used to talk about it. I said it's shortcuts, right? It's shortcuts. In shortcuts there was the Medfly over Los Angeles, and then they were spraying pesticide over LA. So I felt like this is Manila and Duterte is the Medfly, right? And then there would be just vignettes of people living under this Medfly. That was really the pitch to everyone. And I thought that was the film I was making until life happens right in front of the lens, and you feel the ground shifting under you, and the sort of center of gravity shifting, especially when Maria gets arrested again and again, twice, and then she becomes time 100, and then 8 cases, and then she gave us full access. That, okay, she's probably going to emerge, but there's still that supporting cast, because it was very important for me to still feature the allies of Duterte, and I got access to them, and they were, I think, really interesting characters as well. So as I was shooting, Leah was watching footage and footage because we shot a lot. We had like 2 units on the ground when we finally started principal photography.
Leah, were you involved as a producer at that point?
I came on just like in December, just before she went off to do her major filming, like the big stint of following the characters, but she had done a little bit of research and pre-production beforehand. So when I came on, I was familiar with all the characters and who this this shortcuts ensemble was going to be. So we had kind of worked through some scenes with those people already to kind of see how that was going to possibly work out. But the minute she got on the ground in February, it was pretty wild.
Yeah, because actually the day after Maria got arrested, and Maria actually texted me, because I texted Maria, I'm back in the country, because we had already filmed with her, but this was like the start, right, of principal photography, because elections were going to start. And I got there, I remember February 12th, I texted her, I'm back, and we'll start next week because the crew were not in yet. But February 13th, she got arrested. So she texted me and she goes, if you're not doing anything, you may want to come to the Rappler headquarters because I'm getting arrested. I said, I think I can, I think I can manage that. Yes, I'm not doing anything. So that sort of started the whole ride, and it didn't stop until like May, which was the elections, right? So it was a February, March, April, May of 4 months of just filming, shooting every day with 2 units on the ground.
Maria, how did you feel when you see this filmmaker come and tracking you? And did you give Ramona immediate access? I mean, you have a lot of stuff going on in your life, I imagine, especially at that time. What was that experience like?
I knew that well, it's still ongoing. I know that this time matters, and when Ramona asked, I actually had been thinking that we should be documenting, because we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, and I've been saying that for more than 4 years now. So having them with us was, to me, added protection. There's that. you shine the light. That's the only defense a journalist has. They will capture it, regardless of what happens. And then the second thing is, it's step by step. These two ladies have become dear friends now because they've had to watch 800 hours of me. It's like it's very bad when they quote you to you and you don't even realize it. But with Ramona, I knew her work. In fact, I the first conversation we had was holding her accountable for her work and for her actions, and she was honest. So that was kind of like the first test, and then we just move on. There's just too many things going on, and they fit in very well. They knew, I think it's Filipino American. You know when to be aggressive, and you can be sensitive enough to know when to pull back. And that's a great mix. Leah is an honorary Filipino American.
Truly is. She truly is.
That's awesome. I mean, when you see the film, there's so much about it that is so prescient, especially to what our experience is in the United States. Everything from lying politicians to Duterte, he's like the Filipino Trump, and also the squelching of the press, and a lot of things that you have undergone, as a journalist, and that eroding, as you say, the thousand cuts to the body politic of democracy. It's interesting in this film because it did come out on January 8th, which was right after the Capitol insurrection, the riots here in the United States. And so much of it has such resonance for us here. I guess that's more of a comment in terms of just how do you struggle with that, and what is the status of the press now in the Philippines, and do you think there's going to be an impact with what's happened in the U.S. with the elections in the Philippines, or?
Wow. Yeah, so I have the three that you asked. The first is we saw it coming. I feel like Cassandra and Sisyphus combined, because I have been saying in every time I speak, I bring it up. Our dystopian present is your future. And I am not happy it came to pass January 6th, and America, like, evaded by the skin of its teeth another Trump presidency, and you still have 70 some odd million who have, I say, been infected by the virus of lies. Because as we're fighting the coronavirus in the physical world, in the virtual world, there's also been a contagion effect of lies. When lies are pounded a million times, they become facts. When we are pulled apart, and then radicalized by the distribution platform of news, it has an impact on the people whose worldviews change. So this isn't over, but the social media platforms came together to try to help America survive it. And now you have a Biden presidency, but you have an extremely divided society. And there's a lot of work to be done to heal. And I don't even know if you can heal, right? Like, I'm speaking like, I'm not there. Here in the Philippines, we have it worse. It's like, but just look to us to see how much worse it could have been for you. And it could still get there if you don't take the right actions. So, what can I tell you except please act? Everything flows downhill, and we're here. And the only way I will stay out of jail, for example, it's not because of anything I do or anything that happens here. If you can stop the virus of lies from coming into the information ecosystem, meaning social media must be regulated. Hate, disinformation, and conspiracy theory should not be what we are feeding mass audiences, because it changes who we are. It's like, anyway, let me shut up so you can talk about the film. But this to me is, I've said this so often, and I'll say it again. It's like an atom bomb has gone off in our information ecosystem, and it has fundamentally changed us, individuals living in the matrix, and we don't know it. That's even worse than the atom bomb. But what needs to happen is America needs to take the lead, because these are American social media platforms that are killing democracy in countries like mine.
Yeah,
Sorry, emotional.
Yeah,
Don't
as you,
ever be sorry for having, those are important things that need to be said.
Mhm. Ramona, this is not only going on in the Philippines, but it's also going on in other countries, disinformation, the squelching of freedom of the press, and so on. Let's go back to the film, because you mentioned that you wanted to make it more of an Altman-esque kind of look at different characters. And you do have different characters in the film, but Maria does emerge to be the central character. It sort of revolves around her. How did that kind of structure emerge so that the film, it's almost, I mean, I call it almost like a documentary hybrid, because it's an investigative piece, it's a portrait of many people, including primarily Maria Ressa, and also it's a kind of a allegory in lots of ways of what's happening in other countries. How did that emerge? And Leah too, if you want to pipe in, because I know as an editor, the structure is really important.
Yeah, the way Leah and I work, after shooting, she watches most everything because she wants to, and it's important. And that's why she's an honorary Filipino American, because she almost understands Tagalog. It's very eerie, although she doesn't really, but it seems like so when she cuts, when she does the initial selects. But what we do is, because we can't, especially with this film, we cut it so quickly. We had, I think, 4 months really, or 5. I mean, it was insane because we got into Sundance, right? So we had to rush. But what we typically do is we go to our favorite scenes. We don't start in the beginning ever. We don't know what it is. I knew what it was. I thought it was gonna be, yes, Maria was gonna emerge as a primary major character, but you don't know that until you form the structure of the film. And what we basically do is we start with the stuff that we love, because you have to, otherwise you'll never start. So you start with the scenes that are what we call the golden scenes, like the scene with Maria and her sisters. We knew we're gonna be in the film. Bato in front of the prisoners. We knew that was going to be in the film. So we start there, and Leah starts cutting, and then we just put it up on the board and see what sticks. And then once we have it, then we start structuring it, and then and then it emerges. The form emerges from that.
Did you have a lot of footage to work with?
Oh yeah,
Uh,
maybe like 800 hours.
Yeah, I think there was at least 800 hours of original footage and then archival on top of that.
Oh yeah.
So there was more, and then there was also additional characters that didn't end up in the film, or that ended up in the film later and that came in and out of the film. And yeah, so that was kind of a process of figuring out.
Characters that are like Mocha, Usan, and Bato, which are, what was it like to get access from them? I know they want to be in the spotlight. Bato did win the election and Mocha did not. And then you have Samira, of course, from the opposition party.
Yeah.
What was it like to get access to those characters?
Like you said, they like being in front of the camera. They also believe in their own powers of persuasion, right? They believe they're doing good. Right? They're doing good things for the country. You have to believe it, otherwise you don't go out and thinking I'm going to do bad today, right? So that in their own narrative, they are doing what needs to get done for the country, and I wanted to get to that. I also it was important to put them in the film because it gives context to Maria's struggle, and I'm very drawn to characters that are both like Maria on the one hand, right, fighting the good fight, and the other, the people who sort of behave badly, or should I say that? But a sort of a rogues. I like that kind of behavior because I want to see what's underneath that. What makes them tick. I think it's important, and they say yes because they want to be part of the story, because they were both running for office, and they, the spotlight of them would have been good. They also, like I said, believe in their powers of persuasion. At the end of the day, I'm going to see it their way, right? And I leave myself open to that. I see, maybe yes, maybe you'll change my mind. I need to, You know, sometimes I do change my mind, sometimes I do not, right? But I like to have my mind, because I feel like if I'm surprised, then the audience will be surprised, right? So I'm always I keep an open mind. And they said yes. I was very transparent. They knew I was filming Maria. Maria knew I was filming them. We couldn't hide it, right? Every time Maria was arrested, we were on television with her. I mean, we were not hiding, right? And I had two big like white dudes shooting with me. I mean, you could not hide them. And they knew. And also we were surveilled, so that was fine. I mean, not fine, but it was a known thing. So I think because they knew we were making this film, gave us some sense of security. If we had done it under the radar, you know, it's like giving people power by giving them information, right? So I think it was just safer for us.
You should be commended for the level of intimacy that you're able to get with these characters, as well as Maria, of course. But you know, everything from Mocha talking about the death of her father, being assassinated, and so on, which you know, I don't think would normally you could have gotten from these kind of characters.
I like hanging out a lot. I just hang out.
Maria, there's a lot of curiosity about how you became a journalist. I mean, there's a little bit about how you grew up as you were born in the Philippines, and then you went with your family to the United States, to Thomas Farms in New Jersey, which is hilarious. You know, it's great. I know that place too. And then you went back to the Philippines to work as a journalist. How did you get interested in journalism, your career?
I fell into it, learning. I wanted to learn, right? I came back on a Fulbright in 1986 when People Power exploded, and I always, while I was growing up in New Jersey, I felt like I wasn't completely American. Like I was just quieter than everyone and shorter, and you had to prove. I felt I had to prove myself. And then when I graduated, I wanted to come to the Philippines to see what it was like, to understand what being Filipino meant. And when I came here, that's when I realized, oh, good God, I'm not American. As more people from more than one culture, you are part of both and oftentimes part of neither. And that was also another reason I said yes to Ramona, because she understood that, right? Um, I guess in 1986, I walked into the government television station after 21 years of Ferdinand Marcos. And I was a young kid, a classmate of mine, Twink Makaraig, from third grade, kind of my guide coming in here, had auditioned and become an anchor for the government station. And I was waiting to go out, but then I saw the director of the newscast was falling asleep. So I kind of took over. I became a news director of the newscast, and that was how I learned about the Philippines, because I like, you have to know who the people are who you're calling to come on, the videotapes that are up. So journalism became a way for me to learn about the Philippines in a more systematic way, and it also fleshed me out as a person, the standards and ethics of journalism. Because as a Filipino American, I was a person who tried to please. I'm not pleasing Duterte right now, but so I like pleasing people. But I've learned over time that you have to have a core of who you are, and journalism taught me that. So that's part of the reason it's so important to me, that the values, the mission, the standards and ethics, these are things we rarely talk about. But this is why I became a journalist.
That's so interesting, and interesting that you refer to yourself as a Filipino American. We were asking about this in relation to Ramona, who is a Filipino American as well, except that you have sort of reverse trajectories in a way. Ramona was born in the Philippines and came when she was adult. You were born in the Philippines and basically grew up as a child in the United States and then went back as an adult. But on the other hand, this identity of these two cultures, of this interdependence, or whatever you want to call it, the special relationship between the Philippines and America is quite interesting.
No, I like saying that I try to take the best of both worlds. That's how we form our identities. And I guess that's, as you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that all the information operations, the influence operations that try to manipulate us on social media hit identity, right? Black Lives Matter. Both sides of Black Lives Matter were attacked, were fomented by the internet research, by the Russian information operations, and so on and so on. Like here in the Philippines, the influence operations are about identity, and it's always about hitting open the fracture lines of society that are connected to identity. So one of the things I've loved is to see, despite all of that, identity coming closer, because you're forced to actually, the younger generation is forced to define who they are, and not to be so easily swayed by anger and hate. But as you can see, biologically, we all have a lot more in common, and those social media platforms manipulate us through our emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. There's been a question about what the status is of your arrest and your jail sentence. Could you update us on that?
Yeah, the film ended. I had 8 arrest warrants, 8 criminal cases, and then I was convicted June 15th of one of those. I've since gotten 2 more criminal cases, so 2 more arrest warrants. One, I posted bail last November 27th, and then I posted bail again mid-January, and both of these are as ludicrous as all the other cases, but I will fight them in court and win. Where do they? Yes, I will win, or I will, I'll keep trying until I do. That's the only option. Where are they? I'm waiting for, they're on appeal at the Court of Appeals, the first cyber libel one where I was convicted, a sentence of up to 6 years in prison. All told, I could spend the rest of my life in prison, but it's so easy to say that now. What I do today will determine whether I go to prison. The fact that you watched 1,000 Cuts means that there is a greater chance I may not, because I think this is what is happening globally now, is that we need to come together. We need to figure out what civic engagement truly means to protect our democratic rights.
And you just came from it's interesting because Maria just did her first her first virtual arraignment or something, right? Right before this, you jumped from court to here without ever leaving your apartment,
I changed my jacket though. I didn't.
So you're more chill. Okay.
But look at my schedule next week. February 3rd, we are doing a defense witness at the 4 tax evasion charges. February 4th, I'm being arraigned on the 3rd cyber libel charge. On February 5, it is a hearing on the 2nd cyber libel charge. That's my 1 week next week, So
but that's the whole point, right? It's really just to take up your life and suck you dry, really. That's really the point. And you're what? Yeah,
it's
but
not going to happen.
they seem to breed. Your cases seem to breed, Oh my gosh.
It was really hard to keep up with them in the edit room, all the cases and the court appearances. And I was like, wait a second, which case and which appearance and which appeal and which of this? I was constantly in a court. I was like, which one is this?
I'm like, just another court. No, but it's helpful to think of it. Now I know how to think about it for me, because I'm not a lawyer, because it's really very complicated. And that is the point, to make it opaque, right? Because if it's sedition, it's easy. Oh my God, it's sedition, right? It's easy to wrap your head around sedition and insurrection, but court cases are tough and opaque, and people just give up. Right? Or it's not easy to understand, but there are 3 buckets really. It's cyber libel, which is libel on the internet, basically, tax evasion, and SEC, and all those securities fraud things. So those are the 3 things, right, Maria? It's very simplistic, but that's an easy way for us, for Leah and I, to understand it. Okay, so that's a bucket of cyber libel. That's a bucket of tax evasion. Otherwise, you go crazy.
No, but let me bring it to you, right? Then you realize how thin the veneer for rule of law if power wants to take it and twist it. For example, President Trump's pardons of people who committed crimes that he benefited from, right? When the top bends the law, uh, and it isn't equal, it becomes selective justice. We all suffer. So anyway, yeah, let's move on to the film. My life's not so good right now, but it's okay.
So you're so cheerful about it, though. You're so kind of infectiously kind of giddy with your energy. Really, really refreshing. There is a lot going on, and although I have to say, I commend you on the filmmaking in that you, even though it's complicated with all the cases, it's pretty clear the way it's laid out in terms of what happened. With everything going on, how were you able to end the film? I know filmmakers have a kind of struggle with that because so much happens. Could you talk about the ending a little bit? I know you have a little Bono story with that as well.
Well, the ending, it was always thought that I would never, we couldn't follow the cases because then we'd be following them for years and years and years, as you know, cases are, right? So the real container of the film was the election. But then we knew even after the election, there was no ending to the film. But then because we got into Sundance so early, and I'm like, oh my God, we have no ending to the film. So I actually flew back to the Philippines December of 2019, which was a month before we premiered, looking for an ending, right? I said, it's the holidays, they're gonna have Christmas party. There's something there because I wanted to end it in sort of an up note because that it's a reflection of Maria, right? She's optimistic. So I wanted to end it on an optimistic note. So that was the idea. I went back, it was a month before, and then we still had to do her major master interview. It was crazy. So while in the Philippines, okay, I'm going to tell the Bono story. Bono, you two, came to the Philippines for the very first time, and he has a very large following in the Philippines. So large concert, right? In the thousands. I don't know what, 100,000 people? Maybe I'm exaggerating, but I don't know. One of those big stadium-like places. And this was known, and there was so much traffic. So the evening of the concert, right, we're in Rappler headquarters. Maria was not going, but a lot of Rappler people left hours before just to make it to the venue. Amal Clooney texts Maria and says, Bono has been looking for you. And I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, Bono has been texting you and you haven't answered him. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh my God, Maria, what is going on right now? Why is Amal texting you, telling you that Bono is looking for you? And it was so wacky. So Maria's inbox is like a black pit, right? Oh, you cannot every time I email her, I have to tell her, Maria, I've just emailed you, to give her a heads up. Otherwise she'll miss it completely. And so we were there looking for Bono's email, which got buried, and he had invited her to the concert. So that would have been a perfect ending because it turns out Bono dedicated the entire ending of his concert to Maria Ressa. I mean, he talks on and on about Maria Ressa. So we're here, we were in the headquarters watching it as people were putting it up live on Facebook. I'm like, that's her ending, Maria. Why are we not there? Because of her freaking email that never, oh my God. And so until now, we're the missed moment. That was the perfect, because he went on and on about Maria. And then he sings and Maria's picture comes up on stage. And I'm like, wow, did we just miss that completely? Yeah, so that was the missed ending. So we ended on Christmas, on holidays, but of course that was the ending for Sundance, and then she got convicted mid-year, and so we had to, of course, we had to put that in. We couldn't just, we couldn't just ignore it. So it's sort of a different ending now, but I think still optimistic because of what Maria says. It's you have to, what do you say? You have to exercise your rights, or you will
Don't voluntarily give up your rights, or you're gonna lose it.
So it's still a little bit, it's still a little bit optimistic, but not as optimistic because she gets, she gets convicted. But that was the missed last scene?
Claire, Ramona has dealt with it already because for a long time she refused to touch it. It was so painful.
I don't want to talk about it, Maria. Let's not talk about it. I don't want to see that footage. Let's not. Oh my God. It's just
I
like,
love the intimate ending. I like the intimate ending of the Rapplers.
no, it turns out to be a really cool, yeah, because it's like about love and all that. Yeah, yeah. But that would have been a like fantastic ending. Think about it, Leah. Yeah, Leah will embrace it. Yeah, what we have is good. What we had, what we have is what was meant, or something.
I love how the Rapplers are these just really energetic young journalists who have so much, even though they are demoralized and they're talking about the end of democracy, a lot of them, they still have that that hope. And how are they doing now? Um, how is your
It's still the same. I mean, it's tiring, but we were very prepared for the lockdown. Our lockdown is still, we're in like our 40 something, 47th, 48th week. It hasn't really been lifted since March last year. But I think that's why we do what we do. And I guess seeing their spirit, Ramona says this, it's like we are building the future right now. This is the present moment of the past and the present moment of the future. So I think there's that feeling of the mission of journalism, right? That what we are doing matters. It has made us has forged in fire means you're closer to each other. We don't have the friction of a normal news group. I've certainly had this before. This one, you don't sweat the small stuff because it's so big all the time. We just published an exclusive story about how the Solicitor General, this guy who actually began the investigation on Rappler, the guy who has put Lila de Lima, a senator who's been in prison by February for 4 years, right? She's a senator who investigated Duterte when she was Justice Secretary and when she was the head of the Commission on Human Rights. Well, the guy who engineered a lot of these things, the Solicitor General, turns out to have had a lot of tens of millions of pesos of deals with the government. We got the documents and we published that exclusive story yesterday. Right. So we keep doing our jobs. And of course, there's always something that comes with it. But I kind of half joke that for every award, there's probably a commensurate case or arrest warrant that goes with it. But our stories continue. I think the biggest problem is that it doesn't matter if we do the story, if the distribution is so poisoned, which is social media. So I go back to that. Anyway, I'll shut up with the social media because I think you have these two lovely ladies who have dedicated part of their lives to Rappler, so I will shut up.
No, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Claire.
No, go ahead if you want to add something to that, please.
No, it's just really weird that, Leah met Maria at Sundance, right? But by then Leah knew everything about Maria, more than Maria ever did.
Oh, unfair.
Right. So how is that, Leah, to meet someone you've already? Oh, sorry, I'm asking a question. Am I allowed?
No, please. Yeah, Leah, what was it like after seeing 800 hours of footage, most of which is Maria, to meet Maria in person? What was that like?
Well, with the footage, I felt like I could slow her down a little bit and comprehend everything that's going on and take my time to figure it out. In person, she's just like a whirlwind of firebomb of energy. I was completely overwhelmed, I think. It was amazing. It was incredible. I think I was, to meet somebody that you spend a year with every day and, and actually have a conversation with them, interaction is so surreal. I can't even, unless you've had to experience that, it's like a doll that can suddenly converse with you.
But I guess that is the experience of editors, right? In the doc world, right? They usually don't meet the person and suddenly meet the person after having spent like hours and knowing. And then, obviously all the stuff that will never see the light of day because it's legal stuff or other stuff that, Leah was privy to. Of course, she saw everything. I mean, yeah, you have to understand, Leah and I have been working on films since my first film. She's cut every film. So we have a shortcut, short, what do you call that? Secret code language or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she basically, I don't even have to tell her, okay, that's off limits, or because there were so many things that we shot legal case. We were in places that we had no business being, knowing that it could probably, like, if it couldn't be part of the film because they were legal strategies, and that would of course put Maria in more trouble. I mean, like, we can't reveal legal strategy, that's so obvious. But it came to a point where Maria just let us film everything and just trusted that we understood certain things would, it wouldn't be kosher to put certain things in the film.
That's great.
There are 3 films still left in all of their covers. There is the business, looking for a sustainable business model for news. There is how to deal with crisis when your government turns on you, and then I think the third one is how do you react when you have been demonized to the point, and I as an entire organization, right? So anyway, I think
That's part of it. That part is in the film, Maria. The last two.
Only part.
Yes.
You know what you don't see? You don't see how amazing my partners are. I actually tried to convince Ramona to take out 10 minutes of me and like bring in the other guys because I don't think it's about me. The reason I can do what I do is because I have such an amazing team.
But yeah. Anyway, we've had this conversation about, Maria and I have long conversations about the same things for 2 years now. It's like ongoing. Anyway.
La letra continua,
Yes, it continues.
Well, we're at the point where we can take questions from the audience. So I'd encourage everyone who's listening in to ask questions in the chat. We have a couple, but before we go to that, I want to ask the question about will we see this film in the Philippines? Will you show this in the Philippines, and what?
We actually did already. Right before Maria's arrest on June 5th, last June, midst of the pandemic, right? The dark days. We're still in the dark days, but you know what I mean? It was June. And I just felt like no one was paying attention to her verdict that was coming down on Monday. It's a very important verdict because it was cyber libel. It was the first case coming down and the first really verdict that was going to be decided on cyber libel in the country, which really, was precursor of so many other things. So freedom of the press, really, or the curtailment of freedom of the press. So we decided. I had this crazy idea, and I was actually talking to Maria about it that Monday before the weekend, like a week before her arrest. And I said, I want to release it in the Philippines for 24 hours for free. And this was before we were even out anywhere. We weren't out anywhere yet. And I said, that sounds like a crazy idea. And then I talked to Julie Goldman, who's a producer in the film. I said, Julie, I want to do this for free 24 hours. She goes, yeah, I think that's a great idea. So we brought it to the stakeholders, Concordia, Illuminate, Topic, Frontline. And there was a pause. And they're like, for free? I said, yeah, we can't monetize it. That'd be crazy, right? I mean, it's just really just to bring attention to the fact that Maria's verdict was coming down on Monday. And they all agreed. Oh my God, Claire. I mean, listen, if it were other stakeholders, they probably wouldn't agree because we weren't out anywhere yet. Right? And the piracy and free for 24 hours and probably like one of the most important markets, which is the Philippines. But they agreed. And so we were up on the Frontline's YouTube channel Friday evening to Saturday, 24 hours to Saturday night. And then we landed on a live talk back with me, Maria, Rainey Aronson, who's the executive producer of Frontline, and Julie Passetti of ICFJ. And that was our very first talk back in June. And Frontline was saying, we haven't had time to really prep this or push this out. No one really knows this is happening. But I pushed it out in like Viber groups and Facebook and whatever. And they said, so typically we get 20 to 40,000. Maybe this will get 5,000 views. I'm like, wow, 5,000. That's 5,000 more people who know about the verdict, or who can, who will be aware because it ends in a live talkback. We got 233,000 full views in 24 hours
Wow.
in the Philippines. It was insane. It was crazy. And there was a lot of feedback, a lot of sadness, I think, a lot of disappointment that they had taken their eyes off the ball, that how did we get to this point? More than anger, I think it was sadness. Of course, everyone was in lockdown, so it's compounded by the fact that everyone was locked down. But yeah, and so I think but by next month we will be out streaming in the Philippines. We're gonna, so it hasn't returned to the Philippines since, but it will be, I think, in the next month or so.
But
Yeah.
Ramon forgot the most important part. They showed it on Philippine Independence Day.
Oh, yeah.
And it was also, after the government had denied the franchise of the largest broadcaster. So they shut down the same network that was shut down by Ferdinand Marcos in 1972. And then a new anti-terror law had been passed. And so people were really worried. So the context was everything.
Yeah. So people were actually out in the streets celebrating Independence Day, and then they were dispersed by the police. So by the time everyone went home, boom, the live stream started. The film went live. So it was this sort of, you can never recreate that. You can never plan for it. But it was like hitting the zeitgeist, and you can never ever, it'll never happen again, right? But it was pretty amazing, and it did.
Talk about timing. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Let me go to some questions. Let's see. We have a question. I'm going to read it because it's kind of long. Let's see. I guess it's directed to, well, anybody. Who are these vigilantes mentioned in the film that participate in Duterte's drug war? Are they associated with the government in some way or hired by the government? If not, are they mobilized into participating in the drug war? Like, do they take cues from Duterte's tough on drugs rhetoric and independently organize their friends into vigilante gangs?
So that's connected to violence and fear as a style of leadership of President Duterte. They call them riding in tandem killers. Oftentimes in the past, they are off-duty police or military officers. This has happened in the past. As of now, say out of 2,000 killings, only 10 cases have been filed. So we still have no real idea. And the first casualty in this country's battle for facts, for truth, is the actual number of people killed in the drug war, because it goes anywhere from what the government, what the police has been rolling back. So as of the January 2017, the number killed already, the first numbers they pulled out were at 7,000. But then in plain sight, they rolled it back to 5,000 as of August last year. The UN says it's about 8,800. Human rights groups say it's more than 27,000 as of December last year, 2 years ago, right? So you can see but people are getting killed, and it's not just the supposed drug users. It's been called a war on the poor. It is also lawyers, judges. So the level of intimidation, violence, and fear is palpable. I think the last one there is, is it connected to the government? Well, when your president says, kill them, and he has numerous times, it's directly connected in that way.
When does Duterte's term end?
The new presidential elections are May 2022. And we hope that Facebook will do the exact same thing it did for America for the Philippines, but most likely that won't be the case. But I'm hoping, as of September 22 last year, Facebook actually took down 2 influence operations, one from China that was targeting US elections. It had created fake accounts for US elections, but it was also campaigning for the daughter of Duterte for the May 2022 elections. Both of those, the second one was a Filipino influence ops that we had brought to Facebook along with others, linked to the police and military. So the security forces are involved with, kind of very draconian measures. But both of these influence operations were targeting me. So like I can't even wrap my head around this geopolitical power play for a journalist. This is kind of crazy. That's the world we live in.
Yeah, so interesting. Okay, let's switch gears here. There's a question about how did Leah and Ramona start working together?
Oh my God. So I was living, Leah lives in Austin, and I had lived in Austin. I was living in Austin when I started making Imelda back in the early aughts, right? Like 2000s.
I think it was 98 when we first met.
Oh, really? It was 98? Yeah, because my daughter was a year old. Sabina was a year old, and you saw her like running around in diapers, and Sabina's now, whatever, 22, 23. Um, and I was an emerging filmmaker. Leah was an emerging editor. And I asked her to cut Imelda. That's how basically we met through Hector, right? A common friend who said, yeah, Leo is a person for you. And I'm like, yes, Leah is the person for me. So yeah, so since then. And then I moved away when we were finishing Imelda, right? So we finished Imelda actually here in the East Coast. Toward that, I moved to Baltimore. And then when the next film came along, um, you know, it was a time where you could clone drives, right? You could just clone drives and you can work like remotely. And we said, let's try it. I don't think I would have tried it if we hadn't worked together before on one film. Like by then I knew how she worked, she knew how I worked. So we tried it. And I think it's better for Leah that I'm across the country, not looking over his shoulder. It's even more perfect. So we just cloned the drives. And then from then on, yeah, we just kept working together. And it's just, yeah, it's great. I can't, I can't do this work without Leah. It's true. It's true. It's true. No, it is true though.
She finds the best characters, so and every film is so different from the last one, so it keeps it really interesting.
Yeah.
But she's never been to the Philippines, so the next time when we get to the other side of this, Lee.
I feel like I've spent years of my life there.
You probably have. That is so funny.
Everything but I've done everything but being able to smell it.
Yeah.
Oh, then that's okay then. Then it's okay. You're good. You're missing nothing.
You tasted balut? That's maybe your test of.
Oh
That
yeah.
is a test. That is a test.
I've seen people taste balut, but I've never gotten to taste it.
That's your next challenge. Okay, let's switch around. Let's go to another question. Let's see. I'm going to read it. One of the most powerful scenes for me was the interaction with the older woman in the forum, and Maria responds with the new Mueller quote. Can you describe the atmosphere of that forum, and how do you approach these interactions with constituents who are not in positions of power but still hold the same views as the opposition?
The same views as Duterte. Yeah. I feel like well, in that particular case, I placed myself in her shoes. I understood where she was coming from. But at this, that's why the Niemöller quote was perfect, right? You don't really know until you come under attack.
Mhm.
But by the time you come under attack, it's too late. And so that's the entire film. That don't wait until you come under attack before you defend the values and the principles of democracy. How in that particular one, I enjoy fielding questions. I like being challenged, and I want to understand. But the other thing that I know better than anyone else is exactly how we are being manipulated on social media. And I also felt, so a report just came out last night, 2021 Hootsuite and We Are Social. For the 6th year in a row, the Filipinos spend the most time on social media globally, 6 years in a row. And then when you put that together into the model surveillance capitalism, how social media has become a behavior modification system, I completely understand why someone would believe, because they've been like Pavlov's dogs, we're being shaped. It's reward response, and it's very effective. So I always go back to what are we fighting today? An American biologist said this best. He said, we're fighting Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. We are being manipulated. So if you're aware, push back, right? Push back. Don't think fast with emotions, think slow and let your rational mind kick in.
But I think by the time we filmed that, that was toward the end too. I mean, it was a way, I was trying to think of a way to get those other voices in, of the regular Filipino who think that way. And then she asks that question, right? So it was the perfect end. Like, she stood for all the other Filipinos who think that way, who believe that it's more peaceful until it's not, who believe in the drug war because there are no drug dealers in the drug corner until it's your brother or uncle or son who's gone down. Then, then it's a whole different story. So I thought that was a key moment too. And you don't, hey, kitty cat. And you don't, yeah. So those things happen when you hang out a lot, right? When you just, yeah, stick around.
But I think what goes hand in hand with that is political patronage, right? This is our society. President Duterte admits it. In that particular instance, he had given a larger pension. She's a former teacher, right? So she benefited from it. Just now, President Duterte, I think last week, announced that, first of all, this country has no vaccination plan to talk about. Other countries, indigenous Indians in the Amazon are getting vaccines, and Filipinos don't have it yet. Anyway, let me not go there. He said that they would give vaccines front line for the families of soldiers. What happened to the medical frontliners? But again, I think that is political patronage, right? I mean, so when you are the one in power, you have a lot of largesse to give away. And it's up to the citizens in the democracy to say it is right or wrong.
Yeah, but he also needs the support of the military, right?
Well, that's
yeah, right. That's so he's like, okay, the military will help me. I'm gonna give it to them first. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's so many lessons that we can take from this, your experience, and also this amazing film. So unfortunately, we've run out of time. We've had to close. So I'd like to really thank our panelists, Ramona Díaz, Leah Marino, and Maria Ressa, for participating in this. And please, out there, if you haven't seen the film yet, please go on pbs.org to watch it. And I think that this talkback is going to be archived as well, so you can catch that. Thank you so much for everything, and good luck with the rest of your journey. Maria, good luck with your struggle. And Ramona and Leah, look forward to your next films together.
Next year. No. Leah just had a heart attack. No, yeah, soon.
Okay.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, PBS. Thank you, Cam.
Thank you for everybody for watching.
And thanks, Maria, for being here.
Salamat na marami.